Hello, everyone. Today I'm with Marina Smirnova, and Maria's at the faculty of Saybrook University in the psychology department. So welcome to you, Marina.
Thank you, John, and welcome everyone.
I want to ask you about your story and how it began, but there's other, just before we start, I want to ask you about Baba Yaga's hut. Somewhere along the line, we need to take up that topic. And I know you're into James Hillman calling the daemon the wild, finding the wild twin within, as someone called it, and hopefully we can take up a little bit of that along the way. And I know you like Clarissa as well, so maybe we can come back to those topics or find them as we go along. So how did it start for you? Tell me a little bit about your family and your background, Marina, and how you wandered out of the village. How did it all start?
I like that question, John. How did I wander out of the village? Yes. And I so much appreciate to hold this conversation among friends, and just it has this soulful and intimate quality. So yes, my name is Marina Alexandrovna Smirnova. And Alexandrovna happens to be of value because this is my father's name traditionally. I am ethnically Russian with a different ending because I'm a female. So Alexandrovna is connected to Alexander, and my late father is someone who I honor, and so Marina Alexandrovna happens to be of value. I was born on a Russian island, Sakhalin Island, and that happened to be exactly where I feel that I was supposed to be born. Deeply mysterious, mystical, enchanting, multicultural. I still recall the flavors, the beauty, the magnificence, the awe I was born into. And through the second grade, this is where my parents and I lived. And then my mom especially was absolutely for moving out of the island and into the mainland. And in that time, it was a very difficult proposition because individuals could not own property. It was just simply assigned to them. So it took her a couple of years to find a way.
Why did she want to move, Marina? Was it just a little small? She wanted to go somewhere more like that?
Very good question. Thank you for asking, John. So I think my mom had her battles with nature. And in 1980, we had a devastating flood. So she really felt that, that was her turning point. And plus, her goal was to join our relatives in Ukraine. But that did not work out, so we ended up in Belarus. And that's how the story went. Growing up, I was with my mom so often because she taught college as a music faculty, as a music professor, and taught orchestra. So while I was little, I was crawling between the chairs and getting into people's music and help them to hold their part, whatever it was. But I felt that the field of education and the sense of musical community has been with me all along. Needless to say, when my mom was carrying me, she was playing music all the time, every day, and that had to make a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
So coming to Belarus was also an enchanting change. And I remember being so surprised by actually watching how apples and pears, plums are coming to a ripening point. Because on Sakhalin Island, that was not the case. There was just summer season was just not sunny enough and not long enough and not warm enough for full fruition. So to, literally speaking here. And to me as a child, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I could climb the trees and I could get the fruit, and it was just unbelievable. So we continued being in Belarus for many years. And at that time, I completed school. I started and completed my undergrad education, specifically associate's degree in music education with honors. And I started my bachelor's degree also in music education. There was something also in me at that time all along that was pointing towards something that I could not define for myself. I could not figure out what exactly it was. But the more that there's more to the world that the world holds for me to explore. So eventually it blossomed into understanding that would be transpersonal psychology. But the term and the map and the territories would come later on, maybe one step at a time. And this is where Hillman's also idea that he developed so well, that originated with Plato in the myth of Ur, that we come into this world not alone, that there's this guiding divine presence, be it named as guardian angel, be it named as companion, spirit companion, or daemon. Hillman, of course, calls that essence in many ways, faith, character, soul, etc. I felt that early on the island. I remember an instance. I was a child. It was a summer, and it was a very nice day, afternoon, and I was with a friend in the government childcare, which I very much enjoyed. It was fascinating, and we were outside, and all of a sudden sitting, simply just basking in the sun. And there it was, what I later understood, that transpersonal moment, where I was with my friend, and I wasn't. I was present to the earthly, and I was present to the divine, having no language for it, having no prior awareness of it, and no words. But I knew that moment was pivotal for me. I knew that realm exists. I knew that more is mine. So that's how it started. And
that's also like a calling, we might say. We can say, sometimes this thing of the daemon, it's like the daemon and the calling, they go kind of together, don't they? Like a little awakenings, or maybe sometimes it's gentle, or sometimes it's quite a stronger thing that happens that really pulls you. Or do you think?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And recalling, yes, those instances that somehow lifted the veil enough to experience, that present, to experience the transpersonal world, the world beyond. What a gift. Yes, what a gift. So I truly believe that.
Did it start you off on a search more consciously, or did?
Yes, more experientially, truly, because the feeling, that sense of the embodied portion of it, not the intellectual, and the feeling stayed with me for a very long time. It would come and go, and it would be amplified in certain ways at times, and it would be subdued in other times. But over a period of my childhood and teenage years and early adulthood and beyond, it definitely was announcing itself with its incredible presence. So much so that when I was in third grade, I truly feel that my angel saved me. That was a miracle, and there's still no explanation how that all happened, and I'm not looking for one. I just understand that I was spared, and I'm grateful. it's kind of like that, even when we don't know, we're watched over. And that sense of providence that James Hillman really referred to, or being watched over, or being guided, provided for. What a journey.
And the daemon awakening a little, maybe? Isn't it what it's about? Is that kind of sleeping, which, to use the jargon, which was a bit unconscious, and then there's experiences maybe, and then it's somehow this process of awakening. But how much are we aware of it at the time? But it's somehow subliminally, that it's a very incredibly important thing, and there's something where there's something that we're trying to find in a way.
Yes. And with that comes also our opportunities for our capacities to stand our ground. So back to Belarus, when I was in, after third grade, I completed a third grade. I was spared, saved. And I had a choice to actually shift out of the group C, and the groups were A, B, C in my school, into A or B, simply because my mom really wanted to make sure I learn English. And the group C was structured to learn Spanish, not English. And so she really was absolutely convincing. She explained to me why it would be so important. She gave me so many reasons. And her case was compelling. Now, the only thing that needed to be done at that point in time for the two of us, for my mom and me, to come to the school principal, and the school principal would need to hear from you, yes, it's okay for me to be to receive that change, and that would be done. Needless to say, it was a difficult thing for my mom to negotiate, right? Because it was not so simple to change groups. And so we came to the principal's office, and my mom was so happy, principal was so happy, and principal asked me, would you like that change? Sounds like it would be very, very good for you. And guess what I said?
No, I don't want to do it.
No. What I started was a years of my mom remembering
the trauma
yes,
you created.
Yes. How I could have, but I didn't. And what was I thinking? And of course, she had my best interest in mind through the mother's eyes, through the mother's hearing, through her heart. But my own guardian angel, my own call was
daemon.
It was very clear, no. And I was willing to hold my own in that, whatever circumstances may come, whatever the consequences were, I was willing, and I received that. Now, little do we know, years after, in my mid-20s, I had an opportunity to come to the United States, and I felt that this is where my destiny is leading me.
It's a big change, Marina. It's like that's a big jump.
Absolutely.
Were you nervous at the time?
Oh, very much so. And before and during and after and all along, now and then, more so, more or less, shaking in my boots, and yet understanding that this is my path, and I must, to the best of my capacity, to the best of my ability. And so it turns out that my daimon was absolutely right. I didn't need to learn English in my school and then in college and university. I needed Spanish, but English was for learning here in the States, within that fullness of authentic environment that was needed for me to actually absorb the language.
That's where I've learned my English too, from The Simpsons. And not only from The Simpsons, from some of the other movies. So, but fast forwarding a little, transpersonal psychology, how did you stumble onto that? How did that all happen?
Yes. So coming to the United States gave me an opportunity to continue teaching.
Yeah.
K through 12 teaching, first as a substitute teacher and then actually as a full-time K through 12 teacher, and for a number of years. And I understood again here being with my son just as my only blood relative in the United States, right? I understood that more keeps unfolding. So first I went a traditional path of earning a master's degree in counseling because I wanted to know more about the psyche, the soul. How do we get to be who we are? How do we get to unfold, right, into the fullness, into the possibilities? And no one in my family thus far has explored that avenue formally. After completing master's, which I very much enjoyed from Central Michigan University here, I was going to go back to school every year. But guess what? It took 7 years for me to actually find the school and the program that all of me said yes. And I suspect with my daemon's approval, I suspect this is how it actually happened. In the meantime, I was exploring, but the language was not there yet, because even the word transpersonal was not a word I ever heard in my master's. And that would be 2001 through 2003. I had to stumble upon myself. I had to go into bookstores. I had to listen. I had to go to various fairs, just experiencing what is available beyond the conscious mind and unconscious. How do people navigate it? Is logic, reason the only way? And I knew that it's not. Yes, I have been intuitive all along, and I am born into lineage on my mother's side of healers. So with that,
were you aware of that strongly, or was it just something in you, basically?
Yeah, I knew this, but I knew bits and pieces of it because my family was very protective of me. Specifically, my maternal grandmother, she in her 70s. She came to visit me here for a couple of months. Yeah. Exceptionally adventurous. And at that time, she had a lot of experience, and people coming to her for healing. Yeah. And she helped a lot of people. And I've asked her, Grandma, teach me. I would like to know, how does the work teach me? I'm your first grandchild. And her question was, why do you need to know? So no matter how I attempted to welcome that richness of experience, that legacy, through direct teaching, that's not how she would do it. So I suspect that it's very possible I was not ready. It's very possible that she did not feel that that would be the way. Many other reasons are a possibility, but what I know is that she always wanted the best for me, and somehow she thought that introducing me fully into that realm maybe opening too much for me,
Maybe you just have to find it for yourself in your own time, or whatever.
Yes, and I have, but years later.
Yeah, but you've always been, when we're talking, I get that you followed your daemon, haven't you? Really, like you have been aware of it, really, and you're one of those people that will follow that, whatever we want to call it, that inner calling, or that inner voice.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for noticing that. Yes, and that has created a lot of complexities. Hasn't been easy, as you know, like third grade, starting, right after saying, no, I am not changing the group. I know it's all worked out. I'm not leaving my tribe, so to speak. Yes, so that sense of community and connection has always been powerful for me. I'm an only child. So
have you ever felt like you were a little bit marked out that way? That
say more.
Oh, in some of those older stories, there's that thing, maybe, of the essence of it is the thing of a child who somehow maybe has a mark. That was in the story of Hermann Hesse in Damien, but somehow marked out. And sometimes you hear that in story of shamans as well, that that a child who becomes ill at a young age or is somehow marked out from, because they've got a journey that they have to take, basically.
Yes, thank you. In many subtle ways, yes. Beginning with the fact that my grandmother, maternal grandmother, was crying when I was born. She wished me to be born as a boy. And I understand that because she really wanted to.
She wanted someone who could move the fridge. That was the main thing.
Oh, I love that. John, yes. Something much more, perhaps more concrete, less complicated, and less vulnerable. Less vulnerable. So that being said, as a first grandchild, I was pampered, I was absolutely loved, I was cared for. And at the same time, early on, I've developed these sensitivities along with sensibilities, but sensitivities that stood out. And that would be difficult to hold in my immediate environment and also at school. And music, of course, helped to develop those sensitivities, so much so that when my grandmother would look at me and she says, "Child, how are you going to make it through the world, how are you going to do this?" She just thought that I need protection, okay, because as a matriarch in our family, she held
the sensitive one.
Yes, and she
the
held
spiritual one. The
there you have it.
Yes. But I think Clarissa Pinkola speaks about this in a way. I know she has a little section in Women Who Run with Wolves on the mistaken zygote. But it's all about that.
Exactly.
It's all about that strange thing, that other thing.
Yes,
that we have.
Yes, the peculiar. Yes. And this is, I so much appreciate her work. Her book.
What do you appreciate about it? What?
Yes. So to begin with, her book literally fell on my head.
Yeah.
In a bookstore.
Yeah.
It had to be 2000 and maybe 7 or so. I was in a bookstore in Indiana, close to Michigan border. I was attempting to reach for a book on a higher shelf. And what fell down was the book that I needed. And it was a hard copy of Women Who Run with Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And so I took it as a sign. So much so, and at the time, again, I was not really steeped into transpersonal writings and Jungian writings as much as I really wanted to. But Joseph Campbell was already on my radar.
Yeah.
Carl Jung was already on my radar. Indigenous healing was already on my radar.
Yeah.
And so all of this, what Clarissa did for me, many things, but one of them was connecting so intimately the Baba Yaga in me. And this is where we're circling back. You asked me about Baba Yaga. Yes, we have to come back to this.
Yeah.
The Baba Yaga in me with Vasilisa in me, and both are folklore characters.
So who is Baba Yaga? Okay, let's combine a little bit of Joseph Campbell and Baba Yaga for a second. We wander out of the village, we go into the forest, and we think we're innocent. We've got a little picnic pack with some nice camembert cheese or something like that. We think it's all going to be lovely out there in the forest, and then there's strange forces and presences and challenges and tests, maybe. Yes.
Exactly.
And then we come to Baba Yaga's hut.
Exactly. And
so
that's
what's that?
And that's what happens. Many ways to describe her, but she's definitely the one who initiates, the one who tests,
right?
The one who offers that opportunity to chisel out your own character.
Right.
She is this folklore figure, the great mother goddess, but also the terrible mother goddess. So she has this combination of light and darkness in her.
Right. Yeah.
And the whole spectrum of possibilities with one image. So think she looks like an old hag with long nose and wart on her nose.
Yeah.
Okay, she writes in Russian. It's stupa, so it's this container, right? It's this vessel with of course with her broom,
Yeah.
and she is the one who actually in many ways is a hermit.
Right.
She's secluded in that opening into the woods in her little hut, which is izbushka na kurich nosh, which means a hut on the chicken feet, right?
And in the soup, had she got human beings in the soup or anything like that, or is it just?
Yes, and archetypal psychology. Think about it. She is working with the essence.
Yeah.
Bones, right? And for Clarissa Pinkola Estes represent the essential, the indestructible part of our being.
Mm.
And why wouldn't Baba Yaga decorate her fence with skulls and bones?
Yeah.
Including human ones. Yes, and of course it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for something that each of us is in the process of cooking. You know?
I think
it's a journey of cooking.
Yes, and to use some less interesting words, it's the divesting that needs to go on, the losing, some of the. It's not just the gaining, but the old that has to die, the accoutrements that have to fall away. It's the death and rebirth, I think, is the way.
Yes.
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 That cycle of it, and maybe a bit of the dark night too, of meeting the dark. Like it's the innocent meets some of the shadow. It loses some of the innocence, but we have to lose some of the innocence. We can't just be an innocent for all of life in a way. You know, we have to lose some of it along the way, and to come in contact with the bones or the essence or the guts or something like that. But how are you, Vasila?
Say it again.
Are you a bit of a Baba Yaga yourself, or?
Very good question. First, I just could not agree with you more. That the journey is about that letting go or losing, yes, as you mentioned, what no longer belongs. In that process of psycho-spiritual death and rebirth, that the journey of life is ongoing. And yes, so for me, once I deepen into transpersonal psychology, actually through Clarissa Pinkola Estes' work first, you know, she's very unique, but her transpersonal richness is incredibly grounded, and it touches the heart, touches the soul in embodied ways. Remember how she says, you know, just even the image or picture of green vine growing over land with all its wild audacity. Yeah. Now that's also Baba Yaga. That energy. The
fertile great mother.
Yes, that's also Baba Yaga. And so when you say the innocent one going into the woods, right, be it a task, let's say, sent by a stepmother, right, in fairy tale, very common motif, to, let's say, get a fire. Because the fire went out in the house. And, you know, quite often you would think, okay, she was sent by an adult, unprepared, innocent one. How's she gonna make it? How's she gonna make it? But because of that encounter with the forces that Baba Yaga represents and holds, the initiating forces, the forces who are not there only to say good job, but first to test the character. Test the limits, yes.
Yeah.
And also then gift with something of the essence, because the junior, the girl, I'll call her Vasilisa in a sense, it is a collective, yes, although there are many fairy tales involving Vasilisa and Baba Yaga, but Vasilisa for me, it's the collective, for that the innocent part of the psyche, or that young energy, or for Hillman, maybe it's puer energy.
Yeah.
That is alive and well and childlike, which is wonderful quality, and yet it is not yet steeped in experiences and wisdom of the feminine. So that wise feminine who Baba Yaga stands for.
The one who knows, I think,
The one
Clarissa,
who knows.
you know.
Yes, yes. Yes,
and in Hillman's language too, Marina, he talks about the puer, you know, the youth with wings, you know, they can be lovely, the puers. But it's almost like that deepening, or Baba Yaga's heart, if we want to call it that as well, is it's kind of like it can bring more substance and depth. You know, that's like there's the puer ideal of, you know, it's off in the distance or whatever, but it's like that grounding, or and I sometimes think with Clarissa, with her, you know, just her metaphor of the wolves, of running with the wolves, and it's like it's so, as you were saying, so grounded and so earthy, and it gets that kind of body image, the embodied image.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and look, I appreciate how you are bringing puer, yes, and the wings and that inspiration. And to me, Baba Yaga has it too.
Right.
Because to be able to fly, yes, in fairy tales, through the air, and to have her own way, to have her own container.
Right. Okay, good.
To take off, do you see? So navigation, even through the air, right, through the realms, through the divine realms, is there for both. But how they do it, right, and when and how they approach it is definitely different. And so just as for James Hillman having both the puer, Senex together present, that innocent one with the one who is steeped into even rigidity at times, right? Or we can think of it as a ritual, or the way of thinking, or the mode of living, or the crystallization or crystallizing of whatever experience taught. So very similar way Baba Yaga and Vasilisa connect.
Yeah.
For me, because to me they're one archetypal presence.
Yeah.
But has, you know, two different manifestations, if you will. And so this is where the richness of us comes in, because it's not one and it's not the other, it's both.
So what do you say about the shadow? You know, if I was like some young undergraduate at Saybrook or something like that, and I come up there, what is the shadow? I mean, how do you own it? How do you deal with it? How do you face it?
Yeah, aside from academia. Aside from academia. So shadow, you know, Jung spoke about this in so many ways. And for me, part of it resonates very much so, and then I had to figure out my own, yes. And so the language of the shadow, or that part of our psyche that is not quite fully lit, that is not receiving that light of awareness for whatever reason, yes. But it also, for Jung, that's very part of the psyche that is rich with gold. Because the very gold of the personality is to be found in the place we least expect to find it. Very concept.
I think maybe that I know I'm butting in a little, and you were on a roll too, so that's very bad. But the thing is, some people maybe thinking misunderstand that a fraction about the shadows, that there's so much gold in there as well, because many of the good things have been unacknowledged or repressed.
Yes, exactly. You know? Exactly. And so an example, personal, yes. in this context for quite a while. Once I understood that my sensitivity was standing out and it was not fitting in,
Right.
I had to cover it up and just tuck it away as deeply and far away from human eyes as I could.
Suck it in, as they say in the US. Just suck it up, or whatever they say. I don't know. I haven't watched enough movies yet. Suck it up.
So many ways, right? So many ways to say it. And I had to hide it.
Yeah.
Hide it. And it turns out that very sensitivity, that's very sensibility, that's mythic sensibility, that intuitive, richness and giftedness is absolutely part of my calling.
Yeah.
It's at the heart of my calling. But for a long time, I had to tuck it away and try to hide it as much as I reasonably could, putting strong foot forward and, being great at school, grades, etc., red diploma, all of this stuff, only to protect that part of me.
Well,
so
but but we live in a very, I'm kind of mixing the metaphors here a little bit, in this, but it's a very Apollo-dominated society, isn't it? Of the reasonable mind, the intellectual mind, or whatever. And I imagine it would be a little bit of a little bit challenging going through academia and then having that highly intuitive side. And sometimes I think of it like Apollo and Hermes. Like Hermes isn't, like people think Apollo is intelligent. They don't necessarily see the intelligence of Hermes, who can find openings and doors where other people can't, and all of that. And they definitely don't see Dionysus as, I'm just speaking in terms of some of the male at the moment, but it's like, they don't see the Dionysian as intelligent either, but it's like they've got their own intelligence and they've got their own special thing,
Exactly. Yes. And so understanding that there's more than one way and there are different ways of knowing, and all of them, right? Be it Apollo. And I'm so glad that you're bringing them into conversation, be it Hermes, be it Dionysus, whoever it may be it Eros, be it Aphrodite. Yes, the list goes on.
Yeah.
They are vital energies. They are incredibly valuable vibrations that, if anything, at the very least, they demand respect, consideration, acknowledgement, in some form of contemplation. And of course, we can look at them as a Greek pantheon, for example, right? Or any kind of other collection of mythological, gods and goddesses, characters, etc. But Joseph Campbell was so incredible of pointing towards that universal qualities, the mythological richness that they all bring. Being in comparative religion, he was able to actually distill, kind of from my perspective, more universal approach. Even the journey as a heroic one. Yes, as a heroic one. And this is where also James Hillman comes in as a counterpart to Joseph. That's absolutely. And he says, okay, wait a minute. Yes, there's this one way to look at this heroically, and another way, yes, to look daemonically.
I think some of it's a bit semantic to me, in the sense that, whether you call it the hero journey that Joseph Campbell was talking about, or a mythic journey, really, but and comparatively between so many cultures. But then I also understand what James Hillman's doing, because, like, in a sense, he says the US has anywhere had that heroic ideal. It's kind of like it can be a way of not looking at yourself, that heroic stance. Or exactly. When it's taken very literally, perhaps.
Yes, and this is where the rest of the energies come in, because there's more than one. And as Carl Gustav Jung taught us, and others, one-sidedness is actually can be very dangerous.
Yes.
And speaking of in terms of the archetypal feminine psyche, yes,
Yes.
what comes to mind to me with your welcoming the conversation about Baba Yaga and Vasilisa and all of this richness, folklore that can be viewed as, again, archetypally. Who comes to mind to me is Toni Wolff.
Right.
She wrote this article in the 50s, early 50s, I believe, early mid-50s, that's called The Structural Forms of the Feminine Psyche. It's a brief article and very readily available online.
Yeah.
This is something that changed me, and this is something that helped me to understand Clarissa Pinkola Estes' writings a whole lot better, and Jung's ideas, and James Hillman.
And why in particular?
Oh, yes, because she is the one who introduced to me the 4 central archetypes in the, again, archetypal feminine psyche. That would be the mother,
Yeah.
the lover or hetera,
Yeah.
the Amazon,
Yeah.
and the medial woman.
The medial woman, the one in between.
Exactly. And this is very connecting me also to Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Yes, right. So she is the one who is celebrating, the medial and really deepening into this and sharing from her life, from her journey. Yes.
And there's another similarity between you and her that I could see from a distance, is that she comes from that line of cantadoras, as she talks about it or whatever, but it's like it's a little lineage going on there, of the storytellers and whatever, and the healers. But
yes.
it's like those things that have in the heroic model that have also been a little suppressed and repressed. I mean, there's one way to put it, because we've hidden them out of our secular material society because they're a bit weird. They're a bit old. They're a bit other. And now people are recovering them. Or we're recovering them ourselves because we have to. We have to be more of a person, or to be,
exactly,
be who we are.
And Clarissa teaches us all so well.
She does.
Yes, how to reclaim that fullness, how to reclaim the
bones.
Yes, and the oddness and the very peculiar things about us. We're gifted with them for a reason, for a reason. So back to Toni Wolff, in that article, which from my experience, it's of great value.
Yeah.
Of our listeners who would be willing to take a look would benefit in some way or another. And it's a very short read, but very valuable read.
Seminal.
So yes, Toni Wolff teaches that, okay, let's say I will use my own example. For example, naturally for any person, in my case, it would be, she's speaking about women, a woman, a first archetype would come naturally. It would manifest itself either literally or, again, metaphorically, be it archetype of a mother or lover or hetera.
Yeah.
That of Amazon or medial would easily be identifiable. The adjacent parts, and she's given actually diagrams, so mother here, lover or hetera over here, and if I were looking at the page, then Amazon here and medial over here. So let's say I come in as a strong Amazon energy, maybe quite independent in my thinking, and quite studious. It comes easy for me. Then she would ask me to look at the adjacent ones in that diagram, and they would likely come in next. So from Amazon, I would take a close look at the mother archetype. This is where the teaching comes in. Yes, of guidance. It doesn't need to be literal mothering, yes, but taking care of, nurturing, etc. And then the next one would be a lover or hetero. And it could simply be appreciation of the beauty and cultivation of environment that is inspirational. Could come in so many forms, right?
There's something I'm not getting here, though, but that may be due to the fact that I'm not a woman as well. But it's that you said originally that some come naturally, like the mother, the love, or whatever. But is it like a kind of a thing where you come back to those ones again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So, and this is where that diagram that she's sharing is so valuable. It's just as an example, yes. So if I were to come naturally into the Amazon, yes, then her diagram, Toni Wolff's diagram, either mother and or hetero or lover would come next. There will be some work obviously involved, right? A little, at least a little effort and exploration. But here is the very valuable point.
There's something good in there.
Yes, she actually said, and she pointed it out, and I think she's right on about this, that the archetype or the archetypal domain, as she portrayed in that diagram, that is directly opposite from the one that naturally comes in first, would be the hardest one to integrate. And quite often it's only symbolically that we can do it. So guess what? If I start in archetypal domain of the Amazon, and it's actually quite impersonal domain, because Amazon media are impersonal and mother, lover are personal. Then the hardest one for me to integrate would be my medial nature.
And to own, maybe.
Say it again.
To own, to own it.
Yes, exactly. And so it's a journey. It's a journey of navigating and coming back and pulling upon those who know, right? Or she who knows. Remember, Clarissa Pinkola Estes calls her Lake Sabe, the one who knows, Lake Sabe. And that's where Baba Yaga comes in.
She's the one who knows.
Absolutely. And she is part of so many fairy tales, not only in ethnic Russian tradition, but beyond.
Because it's the mother, maybe, or the feminine in all of its aspects.
All aspects. Thank you. Creative aspects, nurturing aspects, and also destroying aspects. Remember how you mentioned that, in a journey, we're not only gaining. But we can also gain through losing. Not through receiving, something. And that's where that initiation comes in. And also in my dissertation work, just a glance at this, back in 2012, I was writing about atonement or reconciliation, or in a sense, atonement too, with the dreadful manifestations of the sacred. Not with manifestations that are easy, light, inspiring, and pretty, but the one that
it's not all plain sailing. We shouldn't try to give that impression that, like, the New Age perhaps falls into that trap every now and again, in the sense of, hey, you're just going to fly, your wings will be going and straight to the sun or whatever. But it's like, no, doesn't quite work like that.
Thank you. From my experience, that encounter with the fullness of the world, visible and invisible as we know it, is unavoidable. And if we're fortunate, and fortunate we are quite often, that passage is, that those encounters are apportioned. They're not coming at once. Apportioned, yes, a little bit here and a little bit there.
Oh, okay.
Just so that we can digest. Have proper context to be with that, to go within and to find those who can help us to stay the course. Yes, and so looking into the atonement with the dreadful manifestations of the sacred came from my own life experience, and specifically with the context of holotropic breath work. I started my training in holotropic breath work at Growth Transpersonal Training in March of 2010, actually, in Spain. It was fascinating the first 2 weeks. And for the first year, maybe a little bit over a year, John, I was experiencing the blissful divine. I couldn't believe it. Every time I would go to a mat, or that would be a term for going into breath work with a sitter with the proper context, and that would be specifically holotropic breath work modality.
Yeah.
I'd be experiencing the transpersonal realm that are absolutely blissful, absolutely fascinating, that would leave me
high
without any substances whatsoever, just
Yeah.
just over for quite some time. So that went on for a little over a year.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my goodness, what a trip, what a ride. This is lovely. And guess what?
Didn't last forever. But
No. And I'm so
maybe
glad
it's not meant to. Maybe it's
it
not
was
meant
not
to.
meant to. It was not meant to. But you see how the divine lures us in?
Yeah.
It's just like the deep forest
It-
lures us in. Do you know? And we're in.
It's like you go fishing and you've got a little hook, and then you catch this big fish, like bigger than what you thought. And then you get a shock. And then you think, oh, I wish I hadn't gone fishing. I should have stayed at home. But then you don't think that for long.
But it's the blessing of the newbies, do you know?
Yeah.
We're lured in as newbies into the beauty of the divine.
Yeah.
And we were to follow,
Yeah.
just like Baba Yaga's stories, if we were to follow deep enough into the woods. And as the character follows, yes, as let's say Vasilisa follows, maybe it's a bird, right? Maybe something lures her in, and she
Yeah.
keeps following, and you know, the surroundings are quite acceptable and quite just she's on a mission, and all of a sudden it grows or shows its different quality. This is where Rudolf Otto, what he's referring to as mysterium tremendum
Yeah.
et fascinans. Do you know,
Yeah.
this is this mysterious, fascinating, and tremendous quality. It is not simply that lightness and that
No.
bliss state. It is something.
It's not
else.
light. It's not light alone, but it's
No,
the full round. You know, the full round
exactly.
of light and dark, the sacred, but also the power of those forces. You know, it's to recognize, and I think also in Hillman the deepening. You know, it's like perhaps it's the combination of spirit and soul. You know, like the spirit that has those beautiful experiences, and we need them. You know, and we need them all the time, or regularly, or along the way, and then the soul that deepens and goes down further into the mystery.
Yeah, so growing down, right? That growing down into the world that Hillman speaks about, you know. So it's giving us a metaphor of the upside down tree.
Yeah,
Yeah, our
absolutely.
root in
The roots.
heaven, celestial realm. Yeah, so our essential home, yes, as souls, indestructible essence. Yes, so, and the idea is to grow down into
Yeah.
that trunk, yes, and into the branches and the fruit and blossom to bring fruits.
And whilst that may sound a little, you know, the deepening might not sound as great as the transcending, but there's something beautiful that comes from it, more of a stability or a substance or whatever. But Marina, I am getting a little bit aware that we've been going on for we maybe haven't got much time left, but I want to do a game with you. Is that okay? I'm a psychologist. You're a patient. And it's a little word association test.
Okay. Could I suggest a slight variation on that?
If you want, you certainly can.
Yes, we're two friends deepening into the richness of being, and
Yeah.
here's the association test. Would that be good?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
Now, Stan Groff, you've got to say the first thing that comes into your mind.
Holotropic breathwork.
Clarissa, what's the first thing you think of?
La Loba, the wolf woman.
The one who knows.
Sings over, yeah, the one who sings over the bones, the one who makes sure that her song flashes out that animal, that wolf who runs out of in the woods and turns into this woman that who has long, colorful hair with different colors and who is herself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jung?
Jung. Individuation, wholeness, and the self with a capital S as a totality, as a God image within, as a mystery. Mm-hmm.
The weirdest thing about the US?
Oh, the weirdest one.
That struck you when you first went?
The celebrations are less than full. It continues to be so. It's just celebrations are curtailed for some reason. I'm not sure what it's about, but yes, the fullness is yet to arrive there in celebrations.
The academic world and the intuitive world, has it been a battle to combine them?
No,
Right.
it has not been. Actually a blessing, following the impossible calling, right, that presents itself each step of the way, somehow reconciles. Has never been a battle, ever. But because I'm also at Saybrook, that's my family, that's my home. And because when the decision came for me to choose my doctorate program, is deciding for a traditional mainstream program that offered me a full tuition, offered me associateship, offered me everything, I chose the non-traditional that didn't offer me those perks.
Yeah.
Offered me students, right? Have I ever regretted this? Never.
Yeah.
Ever.
It gave some room for.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Absolutely. The Institute of Transpersonal Psychology then, and now
Mm.
Sophia University now. Absolutely. And I was fortunate to call that golden wave of ITP or Institute of Transpersonal Psychology that, in a sense, defined my path in so many ways. I'm grateful. Has it come without a cost?
No.
Everything has a price. But that decision somehow, that courage, and also having a mentor who reminded me that I cannot lose my soul in the process of receiving my doctoral degree.
Yeah.
That my soul has to stay intact. It was exceptionally valuable.
Thank you, Marina. It's been lovely talking to you. And one thing I get from it is the way in which you're talking about Clarissa, how there's someone that owned her peculiarity and her diversity and is bringing it into the world. And I think that maybe what I get is how linked that. I mean, that's speaking so strongly to you because that's what you've been, seems like what you've been doing along the way too.
Thank you. Yes, that weave that Clarissa shared with so many, that rich tapestry of soul making too, and of coming alive into our own fullness, through folklore, through myth, through upbringings, through traditions, through this peculiar figures in her environment.
Yeah.
It's just one of her aunts comes to mind. She was describing her, just unbelievable. But this is where also Hillman comes in. That reminds us, James Hillman reminds us that how important that is for parents to have an imagination about the child who he or she or they are, how they're coming into the world, to be exposed to this peculiar and odd characters.
Yeah, very
You know,
much so.
and thirdly, he says, and so rightfully so, to have consideration. Yes, to offer consideration for obsessions that the child may have. Courtesy, he calls it. And if it's
What does he call it?
He calls it a courtesy. Have courtesy for the child's obsession. Yes, yes. And I said, yes, why can't we offer all three?
Yes.
To beings from childhood and into the young adulthood and maturity and well beyond. Why can't we continue to offer that? Yes, have an imagination about who they are, what they're here to do, what their calling is. You know, having that, allowing them to have contact or have access to this odd, offbeat, peculiar ones. But also then to have that courtesy, individual, and I would say also collective for.
Yeah, because they're giving to the world. And now, you know, maybe at this time when people are owning more of their, I don't know, just to use a psychological term, their personality or more aspects of it or whatever, but that is a way to add something moist and rich and
yes, that's Clarissa's energy right there. You know, that richness, that tenderness, you know, that fullness, that moisture of the soul.
The soul is a big word in it all.
Exactly. And you know, what also, as we conclude, what Clarissa helped me to connect. Something that James Hillman quite often, in my perspective, especially in the Soul's Code, he juxtaposes the call or the eye of the heart. He juxtaposes this with the call or the eye of the genitals. So it's the idea of the heart energy versus this really libido that specifically is coming through as essential or sexual. And what Clarissa helped me to understand, that they are woven together.
Right.
That fullness, that richness of the psyche and embodiment, and archetypal presences and the archetypal energies that arise within us. She gives a framework of holding it.
Yeah.
Without trimming anything off, but also being wise about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Calling for wisdom and calling for that love that is within us, and that's part of our life.
Thank you very much, Marina. Thank you.
Thank you. What a pleasure. Thank you so much.